everybody. You're watching NDTV and this is a very special episode on 11 years of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In the course of the next 30 minutes, I'll take you through some very key achievements of the government when it comes to the cultural sphere. Over the past 11 years, there's been a lot of emphasis on cultural projects in the country. Call it a commitment to ideology or a push to India regaining its civilizational pride. Several initiatives that the government has come up with are about boosting the sentiment of cultural nationalism amongst Indians. In the last 11 years, there's been a lot of emphasis on cultural projects in the country. Call it a commitment to ideology or a push for India regaining its civilizational pride. Several initiatives that the government came up with are now aimed at boosting the sentiment of cultural nationalism amongst Indians. Under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, this isn't just about preserving heritage, it's also about rewriting the narrative of India's identity on the global stage, correcting large parts of it domestically, and most importantly, having infrastructure that makes you take pride. Now, a key milestone is the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, which now has become, for many, a symbol of civilizational justice after decades of delays and divisions. Similarly, there are projects like the Kashi Vishwanath corridor that have transformed spiritual centers into world-class pilgrimage sites, blending faith with modern infrastructure. In Ujjain, the Mahakal project combines ancient sacredness with cutting-edge facilities, while Kedarnath's reconstruction, something that was personally overseen by Prime Minister Narendra Modi after the temple town was devastated by floods, features a statue of Adi Shankaracharya in Rudraprayag, a symbol of spiritual unity in the country. Now, this cultural transformation also involves reclaiming India's memory. Since 2013, over 640 antiquities, including 578 from the US, have been repatriated, restoring fragments of India's lost soul. Now, it was not easy as this involved diplomacy and several layers of work from embassies abroad and also investigating agencies. Monuments like the National War Memorial and Tribal Museum now stand as proud symbols of national pride and history. The PMML in New Delhi also pays tributes to all prime ministers now, not just one. The new parliament building exemplifies this shift too. It's triangular, it's built with indigenous stone, and it features the Sengol, which symbolizes the righteousness and continuity that Chola kings were known for, moving away from colonial legacies. The Bharat Mandapam at the G20 summit in Delhi also showcased India's cultural and economic stature to the world, emphasizing soft power through diplomacy and shared values. When it comes to Vikas and Virasat, which is a stated goal of the government, it is clear that Prime Minister Modi's vision extends globally through initiatives such as the International Day of Yoga, celebrated now in over 150 countries, turning yoga into a universal wellness movement that positions India as a Vishwaguru. Similarly, Ayurveda, once sidelined, is now recognized worldwide, with India signing MOUs with 24 countries and even launching the Ayush visa, which is also something that projects India's time-tested wisdom globally. The Waves 2025 summit in Mumbai, inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, attracted over 100 countries and billions in business deals, with collaborations involving companies such as Google. This also signals a new chapter where culture drives economic growth. Infrastructure for spiritual tourism is expanding as well, from the Char Dham highways to Buddhist circuits across Bihar and UP. These routes are both spiritual pathways and engines of local development. Now, the attempt seems to be at making cultural resurgence inclusive and core to nation building. Now, there are schemes like Prasad and Hriday that are instrumental in renewing India's diverse sacred sites, fostering unity amongst faiths and communities. Events such as Kashi Tamil Sangamam and Global Buddhist Summit also emphasize India's role as a spiritual and cultural hub, in many ways blurring the lines between the north and the south of India and reiterating that the country has been one for centuries. And then, of course, comes the Mahakumbh 2025 with 66 crore participants, something that showcased India's civilizational oneness in diversity, a living testament to the country's spiritual and cultural unity. The Prime Minister specifically talked about social harmony in Mahakumbh and brought in powerful characters from the Ramayana, from Nishad Raja to Shabri, who may not have been the protagonist in the epic, but they play a central role in defining our society even today. In 2024, India welcomed nearly 9.66 million foreign tourists, earning over 2.8 lakh crore in foreign exchange alone. Culture has now become a key policy driver, something that shapes India's global image and economic trajectory. What we have seen in last 11 years is how culture isn't just heritage, it is the blueprint for progress. From the temples of Ayodhya to the Kartavya Path in New Delhi, from the new parliament to Bharat Mandapam, India is today in many ways rerouting its civilizational strength, re-energizing its identity and reasserting its place on the world stage. It is a revival, a reawakening of sorts, or just a different approach to strengthening unity of the country. That's what we discuss in the course of the next few minutes. Let's get you some expert voices. Prominent author Amish Tripathi, who has an impressive body of work on Indian mythology and culture, joins us now. Thank you, Mr. Tripathi, for speaking to NDTV. My first question to you, sir, would you say that there's far more cultural unity in the country than something that we saw several years ago?
I think the answer is a little more nuanced. There was, a Western influence, an anglicized elite influence that at least in the elite layers had an outsized impact. What has happened post 1991 is that a different India, the more rooted India, which is actually the vast majority, which is probably 95% of the country, has risen in economic status, and therefore the cultural conversations of that real India is now a part of the overall national conversations as well. And this is, I think, this is a good thing. It's a country becoming more rooted.
Right. Also, Mr. Tripathi, in the last 11 years, the Modi government has launched several landmark cultural and spiritual projects, from temple corridors like Kashi Vishwanath, you have the Mahakal, then of course the Ram Mandir. These efforts in some ways also are aiming to blend tradition with modern infrastructure. How is infrastructure also so important to drive home the point of culture?
Yeah, that's a good question, Vasudha. And look, the way I see it, the rooted culture that I was speaking of, our temples and our festivals are at the heart of it. If you see traditional Indian cities, Vijayanagar, or in the north, many of the ancient cities were largely devastated. When the south, you still see them, where the invasions didn't go that deep. You'll find that at the heart of the city was never the palace, unlike, say, London or Paris. At the heart of the city was always the temple. That was the structure around which the entire way of life was built. And the temple was not just a place where people gathered to pray or to connect to the divine. It was a place of social interaction. If you've seen the ruins at Hampi, the Kalyana Mandapa, many of the marriage halls, everything used to be around the temples. The schools used to be around the temple. The district lake or pond used to be around the temple. That was where people actually gathered. And what you're seeing now in North India with the revival of the temple corridors, with the construction of the temple corridors, is a revival of that way of life. And I would argue that a way of life that has a temple at its heart rather than a mall is much more sustainable.
Right, that's very interesting. Would you also say that there's far more cultural connect between the north of India and south of India? Because the Prime Minister has also made it an attempt to include several symbols of South India in mainstream political discourse, from the Sengol to his visits to Trishur or Guruvayur, or, he talks about Subramanyam Bharati. He talks about icons of south of India quite often. He wishes people on Ugadi or Vishu or Pongal. He's seen celebrating them. How inclusive and successful have these efforts been?
I think it's fantastic to see, and I would like to I think it's a revival of an ancient way, things that were forgotten in the last few centuries. I'd done a documentary on, I won't say the name of the channel, I know I'm on NDTV, but I'd done a documentary on another channel where we'd gone to Kedarnath Ji, and something that many don't know is that the priests for Kedarnath Ji, which is way up in the north, actually come from South India. And there are many temples in South India where they have a tradition which is in reverse. Same with East and West. This is just one example of the unity in diversity that existed in India. It wasn't a hard enforced unity where everyone had to convert to one culture or one method of worship. It was a very soft unity where you could have various different flowers, but there would be a string that would tie it all together like a garland. It's not that all flowers had to convert into a rose. This was the way our method of unity was in ancient times, and we forgot it for the last few centuries. Understandable, foreign rule, various other issues, but now that old tradition is being revived. I'm originally from Varanasi, my father's family. And if you go to Varanasi, to the Kashi Vishwanath Ji temple corridor now, you find so many South Indians, particularly a lot of Telugu state people from Telangana and Andhra, but so many Tamilians, Kannadigas, Malayalis who come out there. And this was something we were used to in Varanasi in any case. We had different quarters of different parts of the Indian subcontinent within the city, and you're seeing a revival of this, which is a good thing, that we can celebrate our diversity. We can celebrate our separate regional languages, our separate methods of worship. In some parts, Lord Hanuman is worshipped on Tuesday, in other parts on Saturday. That doesn't matter. The fact that we see the unity in diversity is what truly matters. That string that ties up everything together.
That's a beautiful analogy. Also, Mr. Tripathi, what does it mean to have a Prime Minister who also, in a lot of ways, very proud of his faith? We see him taking that snan in Mahakumbh. We saw him talk about fasting during Navratras. We see him go to Kanyakumari and Kedarnath. He talks about Ram being a source of power, calls him Urja. He talks about being a worshipper of Shakti. So what does that mean for a nation that has voted for him thrice? The fact that there's a leader who is not shy of accepting his faith or even celebrating it.
No, it means so much to us. I'm a very proud Hindu. That doesn't mean that I disrespect other religions, but I'm a very proud Hindu. And if you see most other countries in the world, the leader respects the core culture of that country. US, for example, was built on Judeo-Christian values, and every single president who has been out there swears, takes his swearing-in ceremony on the Bible. They have prayer breakfasts. They go to church. This is all a part of the political tradition in the US. Similarly, in Europe, I lived in the UK on government work. For some 4.5 years. The king out there is described as the defender of the faith. Bishops are actually a part of the House of Lords out there, Christian bishops, and I don't question it. I mean, it's their culture. It's fair enough. It's that country's culture, because they do give rights to people of other faiths, other religions. India was, in a way, slightly different from all such countries, and it was more communist in its approach. It was more China and communist countries where it's very aggressively anti-religion, and more particularly anti the majority religion. And India, many of the Indian national leadership had this approach that, we had to stay away from the majority culture, which I think is self-defeating, as Western democracies have shown us. If a leader respects and is a part of the majority culture, it doesn't weaken the democracy, it actually strengthens it. And it's wonderful to see Prime Minister Modi do this.
Right. Mr. Tripathi, my last question to you. What would be, according to you, the top 2 or 3 initiatives by the government when it comes to cultural revivalism? And also, what does the Ram Temple mean in this whole context? We are familiar with your work on the Ramchandra series or the documentary that you made. How central is the Ram Temple when it comes to the Prime Minister's cultural approach, or even the society's attempts to have a certain sense of pride over its own traditions and history?
I'm certainly not a socialist, don't get me wrong. I support capitalism, but I am not a fan of hard capitalism, where everything is driven by consumerism, which is actually the model of the economy that we see in the West. We can see the chaos that it leads to. environmental degradation, breakdown of community and family structures, endless purchasing and of brands which don't even give you happiness. You're just working hard to earn money to buy things you don't need, and it doesn't even give you happiness. This consumerism is not a great way to build a society. I think dharmic capitalism is a much better way to build a society. And what do I mean by that? You do need something to keep the economy going. And the West has shown us that consumerism is a way to keep the economy going. What people buy then generates jobs, it generates, it keeps the economy going. I would argue having the temple at the heart of every city will keep the economy going. Think about it this way: Ayodhya, just in the last year, has received, I think, some 7.5 crore tourists. Just my city of my ancestral city of Varanasi, we used to get maybe 2 lakh pilgrims at Kashi Vishwanath ji on Mahashivratri day. Now 3-4 lakh pilgrims come every day out there. Mahashivratri, it's 3-4 times higher. Think of the economic growth that happens, which helps everyone, people of all religions. Think of the revival in that city. This is what you call dharmic capitalism. It's good for the economy, but without destroying the environment, without destroying community structures, without destroying family structures. Because you're not wasting time, and I'm not against them all. But if that's the heart of your way of life, it doesn't lead to a good society. But if the heart of your way of life is a temple where communities gather, where families gather, where people of different generations go and pray together, it builds stronger bonds, it builds a better society. I think it's not just about spirituality and a deeper connect with the divine, it's actually good for the economy as well, reviving all our temples. And we are seeing the impact of that on with Ayodhya already.
Right. Thank you, Amish Tripathi, for joining us. The temple at the heart of society, driving it to be more truthful, fair and confident. A very interesting thought. Thank you, Amish Tripathi, for joining us for your time. Also joining us now is renowned classical dancer and former Member of Parliament, Sonal Mansingh. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us on NDTV. How do you see what many call a cultural revival under Narendra Modi in the last 11 years? Some say that it is a civilizational reset because there are multiple things happening at the same time, from reviving pilgrimage spots to bringing back antiquities. How do you see all of this?
Both. I think the new civilizational reset, in the sense that the awareness has been sharpened, and people are now curious to know more about our culture, our traditions, our ideas, our concepts. Also because, nothing is being taken for granted as it used to be. So, for example, the yoga was taken for granted, that people do it as and when there are institutions, there are gurus, there are teachers available. But ever since 2015, June 21st, when the PM took it to the UN and 192 countries supported the idea of having International Day of Yoga, that being the longest day in the year, it was amazing how the resolution was passed, and now since then, year after year, it's its 10th year. Enthusiastically, people from every walk of life, even religion, are proceeding with yoga. And the reports have been so wonderful, so positive. So like that, there are any number of schemes and concepts that have been put into practice. Let us take the very recent inclusion of Bharatanatyam Shastra. We artists, we performing artists swear by it now. And it is a compendium, the like of which is not found anywhere in the world, not even in ancient Greece.
Right.
So the inclusion of Bharatanatyam Shastra and Sri Bhagavad Gita in the UNESCO's World Heritage I mean, before that also, I think in the last 11 years, the wake-up call had come when India had been lagging behind in this respect, in this, and even smaller, very small countries were there giving their long lists of things to be included, whereas India sometimes forgot or sometimes they sent one or two. Now, year after year after year, so like that, then I must tell you about the return of the Indian artifacts. I believe from USA alone, I believe 600 plus artifacts in the last 10, 11 years have been brought back. I would say the value could be more than $10,000 million dollars. I mean, actually, you can't count it in dollars,
Right.
but still, yeah. Sorry, you were saying something.
Right. Ms. Mansingh, also, my second question to you, and also the last one, when the Prime Minister talks about Indian culture in ways that common people can relate to it, when he visits temples, respects traditions, we've seen him go to Mahakumbh, he has built a statue of Adi Shankaracharya, he has made Ram Temple so central to his cultural approach. How does this also amplify the government's position or even the society's approach to its own culture and traditions?
Yeah, very, very good question. See, seeing is believing, isn't it? So people who just spout words. But here you have a Prime Minister whom we say, who walks the talk. So, taking a dubki in the Prayagraj Triveni Sangam, going to Kedarnath and sitting in meditation, getting the Kashi Vishwanath corridor created from those very narrow streets and all that, the cleanup and also the beautiful vista. Now even Ujjain for that matter. Many, many things that have come about after he has come. That even the Namami Gange project.
Right.
Yeah, we know that Gangaji is very sacred for us because she is not an ordinary river. No river is ordinary for that matter. They are called Lokamata. They are mother of every civilization has been a river. But Ganga is very, very special and she descends from high above. There's a whole kind of symbolism to that story, that legend. So Ganga, Namami Gange, that we have to worship our rivers, whether it's Yamuna or it's hidden Saraswati or whether it's Kaveri, Krishna. The importance of water, flowing water, and Gam Gacchati iti Ganga. Every river, every stream, every jharna is Ganga. Right. Now that kind of awareness, it was there, Ganga mein nahane jana hai, Haridwar jana hai, yahan jana hai, Rishikesh jana hai. But, that I repeat to people also, that tickling the awareness of the largest number of people on earth in one nation. Now that is something fantastic.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Mansingh, for joining us. There's clearly global recognition of our traditions, our ideas, our concepts, and like you clearly said, it also helps to have a Prime Minister leading from the front. There is, of course, pride on that culture that nourished us. Thank you so much for joining us with your time. From museum to memory, from temple to technology, from Sanskrit to startups, the attempt of the Modi government in the last 11 years in the realm of culture has been to reroute and re-energize the Indian society with specific focus on temple, the economy around it, pushing India's soft power, call it a revival, call it an ideological push. But this is the government asserting what it calls Virasat P, Vikas P. Thank you so much for watching.